What if I told you most wildlife gardens are missing the exact plants that actually attract wildlife? Every year, people spend huge amounts of money on colorful flowers, hoping to bring in butterflies, bees, and birds. But many gardens still feel strangely empty and lifeless. And the surprising part is, it's usually because the garden supports appearance more than the ecosystem itself. Pollinators need long blooming periods. Birds need berries, shelter, and nesting protection. Beneficial insects need safe places to feed and survive throughout the year. Some plants provide nectar. Others provide food during winter when almost everything else disappears. Today, we're uncovering 7 incredible plants most wildlife gardens completely overlook, and why these plants can transform an ordinary backyard into a living ecosystem filled with pollinators, birds, and non-stop natural activity. Number 7. Osteospermum. Osteospermum, often called African daisy, is one of the most unreaded pollinator plants because of its non-stop flowering habit and vivid daisy-like blooms. What makes Osteospermum especially valuable is bloom duration. Unlike plants that flower briefly and disappear, Osteospermum can continue producing flowers for extremely long periods under the right conditions. The bright blooms attract bees and other pollinators consistently, helping provide nectar during periods when many gardens temporarily slow down. Another advantage is color intensity. Purples, whites, oranges, and pinks create highly visible patches that stand out strongly in borders and containers. The plant also handles sunny conditions well and works beautifully in mixed wildlife gardens, where long flowering performance matters more than short seasonal displays. Deadheading often encourages even more blooms, extending the flowering period further into the season. And that's what makes Osteospermum powerful. It delivers long-lasting nectar sources and non-stop color, while helping wildlife gardens remain active and attractive for much longer periods throughout the year. Number 6. Buddleja Black Knight. Buddleja Black Knight, often called butterfly bush, is one of the most famous pollinator shrubs in the world because butterflies absolutely swarm its flowers during peak bloom season. What makes this variety especially valuable is the deep purple flower spikes, combined with intense nectar production. The blooms act almost like magnets for butterflies, bees, and many other beneficial insects. Another advantage is bloom abundance. Mature plants can produce huge numbers of flower clusters through summer, helping wildlife gardens stay active for long periods. The shrub also grows quickly and creates strong visual structure in the garden, while providing height behind lower flowering plants. Its fragrance further increases pollinator activity, especially during warm, sunny afternoons. Pruning in late winter or early spring often encourages stronger flowering growth during the next season, and that's what makes Buddleja Black Knight powerful. It transforms ordinary gardens into major butterfly feeding stations while adding dramatic height, fragrance, and pollinator energy throughout summer. Number 5. Cotoneaster horizontalis variegatus. Cotoneaster horizontalis variegatus is one of the best wildlife shrubs most gardeners completely overlook because it supports pollinators, birds, and shelter all at the same time. What makes this plant especially valuable is season-to-season usefulness. Small flowers appear during blooming season and attract pollinators, while the bright berries later become an important food source for birds. Another advantage is structure. The layered horizontal branching pattern creates natural shelter and nesting protection for smaller wildlife throughout the year. The variegated foliage also keeps the shrub visually attractive, even outside flowering periods, helping wildlife gardens maintain interest across multiple seasons. Its spreading habit works beautifully against walls, slopes, borders, and mixed wildlife hedges, where dense coverage is useful. The berries create especially strong autumn and winter interest, when many flowering plants have already faded. And that's what makes Cotoneaster powerful. It supports pollinators during flowering season, feeds birds later in the year, and creates protective habitat structure that helps wildlife gardens feel alive across every season instead of only summer. Number 4. Silene Raleigh's favorite. Silene Raleigh's favorite is one of the most overlooked cottage-style wildlife plants because its soft pink blooms attract pollinators continuously while adding movement and delicacy to garden borders. What makes this plant especially valuable is flowering persistence. Instead of producing one short burst of flowers, Silene continues blooming steadily through long portions of the growing season under proper conditions. The open flower structure makes nectar easily accessible to bees and smaller pollinating insects that sometimes struggle with tightly packed ornamental blooms. Another advantage is natural appearance. The airy stems and loose flowering habit blend beautifully into wildlife gardens, where softer meadow-style planting creates more ecological diversity. The plant also combines extremely well with lavender, Nepeta, salvias, and other pollinator-friendly perennials. Its relatively compact growth helps it fit into smaller spaces without overwhelming surrounding plants. And that's what makes Silene Raleigh's favorite powerful. It delivers long-lasting pollinator support while adding soft, natural beauty that helps wildlife gardens feel more relaxed, layered, and ecologically balanced. Number 3. Nepeta Mussini. Nepeta Mussini, commonly called catmint, is one of the most reliable pollinator perennials you can grow because bees absolutely cover the flowers during bloom season. What makes Nepeta especially valuable is nonstop flowering. Once established, the soft purple-blue flower spikes can continue blooming for extremely long periods, especially when lightly trimmed after flowering flushes. Another advantage is resilience. Nepeta handles drought, heat, poor soil, and difficult garden conditions surprisingly well once mature, making it ideal for low-maintenance wildlife gardens. The fragrant foliage also helps create sensory interest while discouraging some browsing pests at the same time. Its mounding habit softens pathways and borders beautifully while allowing pollinators easy access to nectar-rich blooms. The flowers pair especially well visually with roses, salvias, lavender, and cottage garden plants. And that's what makes Nepeta Mussini's powerful. It creates one of the most dependable long-term nectar sources in the garden while remaining tough, drought-tolerant, and incredibly attractive to bees throughout the growing season. Number 2. Lavandula intermedia, phenomenal. Lavandula intermedia, phenomenal, is one of the strongest wildlife-friendly lavandiers available because it combines intense fragrance, heavy blooming, and impressive durability all in one plant. What makes this lavender especially valuable is pollinator attraction. Bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects constantly visit the flower spikes during peak bloom periods, turning the plant into a major nectar station throughout summer. Another advantage is resilience. Phenomenals was developed to handle humidity, cold, heat, and difficult weather conditions better than many traditional lavender varieties, making it reliable in more climates. The silvery foliage also keeps the plant visually attractive even outside bloom season, while adding Mediterranean texture to wildlife gardens. Its strong fragrance becomes especially noticeable during warm, sunny afternoons, helping create a sensory experience for both people and pollinators. The plant also performs beautifully in borders, pathways, pollinator gardens, and drought-tolerant landscapes. And that's what makes phenomenal lavender powerful. It delivers non-stop pollinator activity, fragrance, structure, and resilience, while remaining one of the most dependable wildlife garden plants available today. Bonus plant, Berberis darwinii compacta. Berberis darwinii compacta is one of the most underrated wildlife shrubs because it supports pollinators, birds, and protective habitat all at once, while staying more manageable than larger varieties. What makes this shrub especially valuable is the bright orange-yellow spring flowers that attract huge numbers of bees and beneficial insects early in the season when nectar sources can still be limited. Another advantage is the dense, thorny structure. Birds often use the shrub for nesting and shelter because the sharp branches help protect them from predators. Later in the year, dark berries appear and provide additional food sources for wildlife during changing seasons. The evergreen foliage also helps maintain year-round structure and habitat coverage inside wildlife gardens. Its compact growth habit makes it easier to fit into smaller landscapes compared to larger, sprawling shrubs. And that's what makes Bergerus darwinii compacta powerful. It creates a protective wildlife shelter, packed with flowers, berries, and year-round ecological value, while remaining compact enough for modern gardens. Number 1. Malus tina di. Malus tina, a compact crabapple variety, may be the single most complete wildlife garden plant on this list, because it supports pollinators, birds, seasonal beauty, and ecosystem diversity all at once. What makes this tree especially valuable is the incredible spring blossom display. The flowers attract huge numbers of bees and pollinating insects during one of the most important feeding periods of the year. Another advantage is the small ornamental fruits that develop later in the season. These crabapples become valuable food sources for birds during autumn and winter, when natural food supplies begin declining. The compact size also makes the tree suitable for smaller gardens, where full-sized wildlife trees would be impractical. Seasonal changes add even more value, because the tree contributes spring flowers, summer foliage, autumn fruit, and winter structure all within one plant. And that's what makes Malus tinas powerful. It transforms a small garden tree into a year-round wildlife support system capable of feeding pollinators, birds, and beneficial insects across multiple seasons. The best wildlife gardens aren't just beautiful, they're alive. Bees moving through flowers, butterflies feeding in the sun, birds hiding in shrubs and feeding on berries through winter. That kind of ecosystem doesn't happen by accident. It happens when gardens are designed to support wildlife across every season, instead of focusing only on appearance. Some plants provide nectar, others provide shelter, and the most valuable ones do both at the same time. That's why these plants can completely change the energy of a garden once they become established. Drop a comment below and tell me which wildlife plant you'd add first to your own garden. And if you want more videos on pollinator plants, self-sustaining gardens, and wildlife-friendly landscaping, make sure you subscribe, because this is just the beginning.